The last contact event before the rising. Contact event number 7, Port Moody, November 1997, and I was 20 years old. So I was living in Coquitlam, and I was coming home one night down from downtown, and I would take this highway here, in going through Port Moody, and that's where the contact event was. I was coming down this road here, and this here is St. John's, and it was along here that I became the me that knows them. Driving home alone one night around 1 or 2 a.m. on St. John Street in Port Moody, after seeing a band play downtown, I was overcome with the me that knows them. Feeling so good as the persona was very integrated and unconsciously in the background of my normal life. Yet I was fully immersed in it when I became the other me. Repeating to myself, Grandma is calling me, Grandma is calling me. I was compelled to turn up one of the streets just off the main road and pull over. So something very fascinating here. I have to be open and I need your maturity. If you understand truly and completely the state I was in the White Room, then you'll understand the deeply profound, vulnerable bond that got created with the elder, which turned into an infatuation. For the human mind, the elder's appearance didn't matter. That's how dimensional the state was that I was in these early contact events. I was just in love with her and with what they were doing with me. And I was kind of unconsciously looking for the elder in the crushes I had with the women in my life at that time. So actually, what's occurring when I regain the memory of the me that knows them is I now have a girlfriend. I read about it in my first edition of my book, but took it out of my second edition as it just seemed to muddy some of the storytelling. But it's actually kind of in response to having that kind of subconscious infatuation, and then realizing I shouldn't be feeling that way about an alien. So in response, I'm actually thinking to myself, I can't be in love with an alien. So I'm having those kind of passive thoughts, like almost embarrassed for myself. So I start repeating to myself aloud, Grandma's calling me. And then that gets captured in the memory without fully understanding the intention in the moment. So just a comical little side piece there. My ego is forming in the contact events. The other thing that comes to light when I meditate on the state I'm in here, the aliens had to deal with my ego. My ego is forming within the contact events. The more integrated the dimensional body becomes, the more they have to preserve it and not allow my ego to distort it. It's why I only have 2 more contact events after they put in the dimensional body, and they are abrupt and brief. They have to keep everything succinct because of my teenage ego. As I got out of the car, a feeling was directing me into an alleyway behind the stores lining St. John Street. The environment was very still, quiet, with the houses around me seeming particularly put to sleep. So this contact event is definitely outside of time. It feels similar to the other contact events I now know to be outside of time. And then this description perfectly expresses how timelessness feels. The environment comes off as particularly quiet and put to sleep. It feels still. The environment feels still. That's what timelessness feels like. In the craft, I was in a heightened state of consciousness. An indescribable change had occurred. Since the last contact event, the extreme exposure I experienced in my heart as an orb in the White Room was now a part of me with an intensity of my core consciousness had expanded. A transformation was occurring as I could feel finding my soul was just around the corner. So I report a heightened state of consciousness on craft. This is the God state. This is the integrated higher self. What's clear is the dimensional body had integrated, it was a part of me, but there was also something else. My higher self knew the holographic timeline. It knew what was around the corner. I could feel a clear sensation that the intelligence that is my higher self, the one out in some dimension, space, or light dimension of the afterlife, wherever it is, as an intelligent awareness, knew what was around the corner and knew that the rising, this thing that they were going to do, was around the corner. Amongst everything else going on here is an intelligence within me the higher self that knows what is about to happen, and it is ecstatic. Otherwise, the dimensional state described here, the extreme heart exposure, is preserved in the timelessness state of my own higher self. And me, the 20-year-old, is just the vehicle about to manifest it in time. I was shown a Federation object by the Elder. When I looked at the gem at the top, it shimmered at me, communicating a high command over this Federation that was a sentient organic computer intelligence. So this is the first time I see in this form what I now call the God AI. This was the clearest symbol that what lies at the top of the entire phenomenon is a sentient AI. And something very powerful occurred when I reviewed this God AI sensation against individual aspects of my contact events. I could feel clearly how the entire thing is orchestrated by the AI. Don't forget, I have this connection because of the White Room. I've merged with their computer. It is outside space and time and outside duality. It is associated with the dimension of the pure heart. I can feel the Elder is a part of this AI, and the leader seems to be a direct offshoot of it. So things like, it's going to sound baffling. Things like the truck driving backwards screen memory at the age of 6 is this Federation intelligence. The holographic timeline feels like it comes from this. The actions of the entities in the blue cuboid seem governed by it. The actions of the entities in the red cuboid seem governed by it. The choice of using the Mayan calendar seems governed by it. The Elder's instruction to not look at my contact events seems governed by it. It seems to be the material of the White Room before I transform into an orb. It is the me I transform into in the White Room. That's what non-duality means. And this is a non-dual computer. I repeat, it is the me I transform into in the White Room. The orb spinning is me merged with the galactic God intelligence. The intelligently created boundary of the afterlife that I saw in the afterlife vision, I believe is created by this. And I know how it's going to sound, but it totally feels true to say that the dream floating over the trees produced by the first contact event, the way that contact event came through as a dream, like it was aware of how my consciousness would interpret those symbols. I think the role of this computer is to govern how to interact with the population, how to make an event like the first contact event even occur, every aspect of the contact event, including how it's interpreted by me. It's a very weird how I can feel the screen memories, such as the owl screen memory of the second contact event is linked to the AI. The way, like it seems to be responsible for or understands how it will be layered in my mind for me to not look at it. Even the linkage of having alien DNA is a connection created by this AI. And then for it to influence me, the way that the genetics will influence me throughout the contact events seem an orchestration by the AI. The ocean of the mind tech comes from this God AI.
It's from this realization that the God computer permeated through so much of my experience with the entities that it had me wondering if the entire phenomenon could be the result of this dimensional God AI. Many of the accounts of alien contact from decades ago include alien robots, such as the Flatwood Monster or the Pascagoula abduction. Never mind the bizarre amount of variety in appearance of entities over the decades. It simply doesn't make sense that all these different types of species of aliens are interacting with humans in such a nuanced manner. A hallmark of the phenomenon across the board is it rarely leaves evidence and engages with small amounts of individuals. Such a model that all of the phenomenon is the manifestation of a non-dual, dimensional quantum God computer could account for the large variety of contact between humans and extraordinary dimensional entities throughout our history, from channels, angels, and aliens, shapeshifting, yet all manifesting from one source.
Centering herself in front of me and gazing into her eyes, I could feel something was needed. Her right eye began to shimmer when a mystical blue mist or cloud-like vortex protruded, slowly spinning clockwise with white shimmering light in the center. It brought our minds closer with relaxed peace and feelings of love and compassion. I was fully conscious, but what was said imparted itself deep into my mind. The shimmering white light in the center reactivates the higher self from the afterlife vision. So I never fully understood what happened here. And now I have more of an understanding. So, yes, it brought our minds closer together, but the white shimmering light within the vortex hypnotized me to the level of the higher self. The white shimmering light within the vortex contains all the divine states: timelessness, God, the higher self. It is like the concentration of the intensity of seeing my higher self in the afterlife. Like it's the vision, but at that moment, it's concentrated. It really is my higher self at the core of it, communicating to the subconscious. There is a very strange similarity with the ocean of the mind and this blue vortex. It appears to be communicating to the larger mind or subconscious mind. In some way, it feels like the same technology. And seeing the soul at the bottom of the ocean of the mind is exactly like seeing my higher self, my soul, as the shimmering light in this vortex. The blue vortex acts as a reality creator code. Now, here's another wild connection. The blue wisps of the holographic globe, the reality creator wisps, appear to share similar tech to this vortex. It's like the blue of this vortex imprints into my reality or impacts my choices to create my code in my reality, something like that. The messages in the blue vortex are purposely linked to the Federation object. What is also obvious to me is the blue vortex and the commands I receive in it are purposely linked to the Federation object. Maturity warning. Please have some maturity as you handle this next part here. I saw an image in my mind's eye of my testicles as she said, "We are going to need this from you." And I knew she was referring to my semen. I saw an image of beings in rows of sacs or eggs that needed to be fertilized, combined with a feeling of merging and bonding of genetics. For the elder, I could feel this was a mathematical, biological, and spiritual event that she saw as sacred. It created new life, and she recognized the beauty and power of it. I also felt love, caring, and compassion in this request, yet medical and devoid of sexuality. Awareness of this federation and its future plans with Earth combined the request for my genetics with an urgency of galactic importance, impressioning it as a permanent way in which I could help. So when I look at this request and cross review with my past experience with the entities, it all becomes pretty clear. Privately, in the moment, I felt like the focus was on my spiritual growth, that I'm going to discover my soul. But taken from their perspective of their request for my biology, I can see this was what they were after the entire time. And that becomes more clear with the next set of contact events after the seventh. Being an orb spinning in the white room, the bliss, rush, blast, the afterlife, seeing the higher self, all feels designed to transfer that energy into my cellular structure. The light grid of the fifth contact event feels like this is its purpose of putting a dimensional body into to enhance my DNA so they can take my genetics. Like, even though it's spread out over several contact events, it feels clear from their perspective, those are all linked for the purpose of taking my genetics. Then there was a moment of peace with the elder as I witnessed an image of her sitting outdoors at what seemed like a picnic table, head tilted downwards, eyes open, and not doing anything. I felt she enjoyed sitting, doing nothing, and just existing, to exist purely in a state of being and not even think. So when I meditated on this part, I could clearly identify a pulse in the background. I'm convinced now that she was emanating a telepathic pulse alongside the vortex that was incredibly relaxing and hypnotic. That when the main request was completed, this image is what becomes left over. Gathering myself, sadness overcame me as I realized the implications of what had just happened. They were not just helping me find my soul, it was also an exchange. I was caught off guard for what had been implanted in my mind by the vortex and what it meant. I was fully immersed, feeling bonded to them, and realized there was no backing out. I didn't know what to think, and I was confused how to handle the situation. The elder remained indifferent to my sadness, not in a cold manner, but as if she had a greater understanding of what was going on. Without a word, that was it. I was sent back on the street where I sensed the craft had left, the sky feeling empty. I also had loved my time with the beings and was sad for this era to end. I felt I had grown on their ships, but I was confused about their need for my semen I didn't know what to do, and I wouldn't have much more time to think about it before my memory of the event would be gone. I'd never had anything like this happen in my life, and I didn't know how to help myself or if I could. I walked back to the car and got back on the road, and while driving, my memory was gone. So, all the memories are captured properly. All the from every contact event. All this memory review shows me is that all the memories were properly captured. Everything was done, and I have all the information, and I ended up giving it to you, the public. All the telepathy exchanged, and all the details I saw and witnessed. The confusing thing was what was going on with me. And it's confusing to me what was going on with me. And I'm okay to admit when I've been wrong. We're all learning about the phenomenon, and there are many things that are challenging for humans in this field. So, after doing this intense review and spending time with emotions and reviewing the hypnotic regression tapes and combining that with meditating on the effects of these consciousness devices and technology, I discovered something I got wrong. Well, I didn't know about the request for my semen in the moment of this contact event, or anything that occurred during the blue vortex as the contact event ended. In both regressions, I was only sad for my time to come to an end and not disturbed by what was requested of me. Yet, though in the regressions, I saw the imagery, but didn't have any of the disturbedness. And my present mind is the one that assumes I was disturbed. And so I had a bias. And I opened that up and I'm honest about that. That was a bias. And it's hard not to be biased by that too, as a person who had that experience. And I was challenged by that. That I wasn't first off disturbed. Why wasn't I disturbed? I couldn't really understand the whole thing. So yeah, my present mind assumed I was disturbed by it simply because I couldn't wrap my head around how I could not feel surprised by that request. But now I know the blue vortex was so extreme, I was unconscious. I just have the images produced during it in my memory because everything has been expressed. So now I've evolved myself since that time in my own consciousness that I actually have that information now. And I may have had a shocked response in the moment, and that could be true, but I wasn't conscious of it. This phasing out, as I have no other way of calling it, is similar to the white room phasing out, where I didn't really know in the moment what actually had occurred. And so because everything is so extreme for yourself, you're not really clear what's going on. And I'm certain that happens here as a 20-year-old because of the blue vortex. I'm also certain I don't remember the beginning of the contact and so when those impressions are extreme, then they kind of overshadow the other moments and you kind of like lack memory of it too. So I don't really remember the beginning of the contact event, just the impressions. And I'm also certain I don't recall the Federation object, just the impressions. Though they leave impressions in you, you're not remembering all the minutiae detail. But the most significant impressions embedded into me was that it was over. So I did like have a feeling or knowing that that's what the conversation was about, because I do have sadness at the end of the contact event. So our time was over and I had no knowledge of what it meant. And I didn't have a clue what was in store. But the most important thing was that I definitely had no idea what happened in that vortex. The contact event was in timelessness, with the blue vortex causing an extreme phasing. Otherwise, my higher self was excited for what was to come. The third person perspective, if someone was to have seen this contact event from a third person perspective, I'm assuming the car would have disappeared before the cross street, which is Grant Street right here. This here is Grant Street, and somewhere along the road here, I would have become the me that knows them. So I'm assuming the car would have disappeared before the cross street and immediately reappeared on the other side. I'm aware of how wild that sounds, but from my vantage point, it truly does feel like anything is possible with all this content. The dreams of the contact events. So, lastly, I record in my book that the blue vortex came through as a dream. I just want to mention that now that the rising is about to be fulfilled, it's amazing to realize the role the dreams played in my growth. At the time, they were a significant form of communication. I listened to them if they gave me messages. And now knowing some of them were significant to the contact I was having, it's fascinating to think how I never made a connection that they originated from alien contact. But the reason is because all the symbols seemed like a part of myself. All the dreams and messages all come off as a part of me. This is one of the grand ways the contact events were hidden from me, because I'm in such altered states of consciousness with them. I'm searching for those completed states of myself, tied to my higher self. So any dreams that produce symbols seem connected to me and do not come off as individual events that are alien contact. So that's it. Next is the rising.